Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of Rendezvous with Anza Saqib on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C levels across the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy with our league of key thought leaders who are not only domain experts but those who have made a considerable amount of difference in the fields that they're working in. Today, as well, we've got a very senior professional. He's an information security professional, Mr. Syed Aun Abbas Bokhari. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Ms. Hamza. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Acha, Onsab, we know that you're an information security professional, mashallah, chief information officer भी हैं at a leading bank. But मुझे ये बताइए कि where did your personal journey begin? आपने कहाँ से start किया और आप यहाँ तक कैसे पहुँचे?
Actually, I started with Partners Limited. This is the largest ISP in Pakistan. Then I served with the government of Pakistan for good 17 years. And for the past 4 years, I am working with a bank. But in this era of my government service, I served with the defense side as well as the law enforcement. And actually, it was a learning journey and very learning experience.
जी, ज़बरदस्त. अच्छा सर, when we talk about you as a professional, हम साइबर सिक्योरिटी पे इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी पे आते हैं, लेकिन पहले मुझे ये बताइए कि व्हाट आर योर बेस्ट अकॉम्प्लिशमेंट सो फार जिनको आप समझते हैं कि दीज आर माय अचीवमेंट्स.
Actually, I take pride in the cybercrime law that I have drafted, and this which is the current cybercrime law in
अच्छा,
Pakistan.
माशाल्लाह.
And
The one
the
that
second thing
is drafted by you.
So, yes, this is the law in which I have a significant role, very high significant role in preparing this law.
Lovely.
We call it Prevention of Electronic Crime Act. And
Right.
the second is I have been involved in, actually, was my primary task, establishing 6 digital forensic laboratories across Pakistan. This was the first time a law enforcement agency in this region, South Asian region, was establishing such an setup. And those laboratories are still with the FIA and with their work on it. And another one is when you go to get a mobile phone SIM, you give a thumb impression for that.
Yeah.
That project, actually, I initiated that project and ran it through to the completion.
Zabardast. So 3 major projects that have really played a part in the evolution of Pakistan's information security infrastructure. So इस पे पहले point पे आते हैं. When you talk about the Prevention of the Electronic Crimes Act, what are the 2-3 main takeaways from it? Because one, we know कि fraudulent behavior या online phishing scams के हवाले से यहाँ पे कोई बात की हुई है. But what are the 3 main areas that are of concern?
First of all, Anja, we have to understand that we have our privacy. Our data is private to us. And if somebody steals or accesses your data, which he is not authorized to do, the law criminalizes that act. Means somebody tries to get your computer, hack into your computer to acquire the data, or get access to your email account or system and organizational data. So primary thing is that unauthorized access to any information system is now a crime. Second is, if somebody modifies something, data, or even some pictures, and or even the law addresses the modesty of the natural person, especially for women. So if somebody edits or modifies some information, or modifies the picture, that is also a crime, and FIA can
I
take
think
out.
punishable by about almost 3 years or 5 years in jail, and I think about 3 to 5 lakhs in ransom.
Actually, yes, this law is heavy on financial penalties and along with the imprisonments, because some people they understand the financial language, and some people they understand that going behind the bars is not good for them. However, this is the way we have drafted the law, and the third takeaway is the critical information infrastructure. We call it an action that disables or hampers the operation of a critical information infrastructure, which an infrastructure, an IT system that serves a number of people, like say telcos data system, NADRA system, and bank system. These are critical information infrastructure. If anybody hacks them or intrudes into them, then this is called a cyber terrorism activity. So this is
Right.
also, these are the three main.
So speaking of Ansab, speaking of cyber terrorism, I know you mentioned that our data is private to us and it only belongs to us. But a lot of times we've seen, and especially in money laundering cases, or with regards to FATF and all, we do see that the government does, at many points in time, access this data, even private to individuals, whether it's bank accounts or whatever. And I think even banks are at liberty to inform if there is any anomaly in the account. So, can you elaborate a little more about it? Where does the balance come in between your privacy of data and national security?
First of all, Anja, we have to differentiate between the act that is a lawful act and that is something which is not a lawful act. Like say, if you're maintaining a bank account, that is the finance you are maintaining and its transactions are private to you. But if somebody maintains an account and performs activities like money laundering, this is originally an illegal activity. And
Right,
if the banks have actually developed certain systems and algorithms on which they determine if somebody is going for a money laundering thing or not, or if somebody, if someone has an account and he is a taxpayer, the government checks on it whether it is the account holder is a taxpayer or not. So if it
right,
is your legal money, you definitely pay the taxes. If some people do evade the taxes and they avoid to pay the taxes just because they don't want to declare the source of income. So
absolutely.
in that case, they have to be responsible and they have to be questioned about it, and they must respond to it. However,
So,
uh,
sorry.
accessing the data, sorry, I'm coming to the point. Accessing the data, they do not access your data as such, but the computer system in itself identifies if there is some anomaly, and these
Mhm.
systems are tested and these systems are properly checked and monitored. If and At the bank and at the government level, they have strong checks to avoid any person's access to the data or
Right.
access of any officer to a certain person's data unless he's involved in something or he's under investigation on something.
Right. Makes a lot of sense, sir. But when you mentioned that there's also a lot of people who are committing tax fraud, and these are the very people, like at least a vast majority of them, who refuse to use any online banking systems because there will be a money trail. So what do we do? Like in a cash economy, a cash-rich economy, we know there are so many businesses that are operating, and they're purely operating on brick and mortar means or cash centric transactions. So how are you encouraging them to get into the online
Uh,
transaction?
First of all, the banks have provided very convenient means of income, money transfer now. You can transfer the money through mobile phone or the banking applications, and you go and you go to a shop and you scan their QR code and you make the payment. It is just like you make the payment through your ATM or a debit card or a credit card. The
Right.
same way, the payments are being made, and actually the banks have facilitated their customers in making the payments through mobile applications and other means. And at the shops also, since the COVID started a year ago, and there was actually a fear that the virus gets transferred to the cash also. So
Right.
at that time, shops also started working with in a cashless environment. And if you talk about encouraging, yes, we have the state bank has already waived off all the taxes or all the charges that incur on a digital payment.
Really? So now,
Yes,
or any
this
digital
is the
payments
government.
that, okay, lovely. And I think so then in that case, the pandemic came as a blessing in disguise, because I think it took us 20 years ahead of our time at the pace that we were going. Onsaf, you also spoke about, two other achievements that you have made. and one of them being that you spoke about how we're dealing with, I believe, the companies. Hello.
Biometric.
Yeah, exactly. So, like how, businesses or individuals would say, whenever you're purchasing a cell phone, and then there's biometrics that are involved. Now we know that even though it's a very good practice and it makes information secure, but I remember reading uh, a month or 2 months ago that there was a huge case of stolen biometrics recently, even from Pakistan, I think, a Nadra database. So, why by putting someone's biometrics out there, it also puts a lot of consumers at risk. What steps are we taking to ensure that this is done securely?
First of all, Nadra is a large organization, and they have implemented a lot of security controls to avoid someone accessing any citizen's personal data.
Hmm.
This data includes your credentials, means your name, family name, and other information, and the biometric information that that the fingerprints you have given them, or that you have entrusted on them. Uh, the access to that information, yes, it is not accessible to anyone outside without the system requesting for it. Second is more controls. Actually, cyber security, cyber domain is actually it is evolving, and more and more controls are required to be implemented, and to avoid any such thing in the future also. When you talk about any organization's data breach that may result in exposure of data, that is something that can happen, but the controls are there to avoid it. And the data, if somebody claims that they have acquired this data from by hacking Nadra, no, it is not the case. Actually, this is something.
Right. And so, how far away are we from, like, let's say, AI-based facial biometrics? Okay, I still see that most of the time, whether you're going to buy a cell phone or whether you're, getting a new SIM card, there's always usually, your thumb impressions that are taken, thumb or fingerprints. Um, how far away are we from AI-based facial biometric solutions? Because I know that some of our members as well, they're working on these solutions.
Yes, actually, acquiring a technology or implementing or it on a certain number of people or a small scale, it is very much doable. But implementing the technology across the country, like say we have 23 crores of people population, so implementing it for all of them, and all the people coming into the Nadra centers and getting their data re-verified or up to date updated, this is something actually a big challenge. And acquiring the technology is not a problem. It is not a problem for Nadra or not a problem for the government of Pakistan. But mobilizing the public and mobilizing the masses, actually, it is something that needs to be managed, and it requires a lot of budget for also.
Really? So, sir, which is the safer option, fingerprints or your facial biometrics?
Actually, fingerprints are better and safer option, in my understanding, because facial impression, yes, it is there, facial structure is there, but sometimes algorithms do recognize two people with the same bone structure, and same actually similar faces as one, and sometimes even identical twins also.
Right, absolutely. That's a valid point. But the point that I raised here was because a lot of international airports and a lot of organizations now we're using the same technology on our cell phones with our face ID unlocks and everything. So it would be interesting to explore that space. So
Yes, but
also,
sorry, I
like,
would interrupt on that. Actually, those where this is only a verification. They verify against a single person's ID or single person's image.
okay,
The cell phone identifies me with my already saved data.
right.
Okay, that is something different. But when the biometric fails, when the facial matching fails, the biometric is still the next thing.
Right,
So yes,
absolutely.
there's a lot of potential and things to be explored. Thank you.
Right, especially post pandemic, right?
Yes.
Um, So it's interesting that you mentioned these points because you also set up digital forensic labs, right? What exactly happens in a digital forensic lab? Now, generally, we know that there are other labs that are probably going to be testing DNA and sampling different structures. What happens inside a digital forensic lab?
Actually, whenever there is a computer-related crime or there has to be some evidence to be extracted from a computer system or a mobile phone system, because your mobile phones are actually micro-sized computers now. So those devices are taken to the forensic lab. They examine the device without harming or tampering with the integrity of the evidence. Means there is no change made on the device. Actually it is imaged in a way that original system doesn't is not accessed. Original hard disk, original data, or original computer system, or original mobile phone, it is not accessed, but its data is imaged, and that data is worked on to extract the evidences, which are then further submitted to the court of law.
Wow, amazing. And so that's very, very interesting. Now, when we talk about, generally, we spoke about cybersecurity, but one of the key areas where is of concern is obviously uh, post pandemic we've seen a boom in e-commerce and online shopping, and with that it also discourages some people because there are all kinds of frauds that are committed, whether it's I don't know if we've got consumer protection laws in place or prevention against electronic crimes is falls within that ambit. But most of the time we see that people are part of phishing scams online, or there's some kind of clickbait, or there's you know maybe the goods delivered are faulty because you're not inspecting them in a physical store. So, what do you think is going to be the role of cybersecurity in e-commerce as we see developments in the future?
Actually, whenever there is some information system involved, there must be information security controls implemented. So e-commerce, yes, it is processing your personal data along with your financial data. I mean, you're using a credit card or a debit card or your mobile phone transaction. It
Right.
requires the bank requires your personal information. The seller requires the merchant requires your address and information,
Billing it this way.
contact information, and your excuse me, financial information is your transaction details and the device or the instrument through which you are performing a transaction. So all
Right.
this has to be under after provision. I mean, the secure facilitation is there, should be there after implementing information security controls on the systems, on the databases, on the network, and on the device applications which are used by the customers. So it is all there. It must be there, and otherwise there are risks of data breach or data pilferage.
Right. So, what steps can the government take now, since you've already worked on three projects in particular? What do you feel the current government, because we know the Prime Minister and his whole cabinet are very much dedicated to promoting a digital Pakistan, and there's a vision of a digital Pakistan constantly being spoken about. What steps need to be taken in terms of digitization of not just one province like KP, but the rest of Pakistan?
Actually, digitization is not just the computerization of the offices. If we call computerization, it is already there. Every office has a computer, but these are actually there are standardized applications which are there for office management, for case management, for request management, and complete systems. This is complete shift of environment. So first of all, people, they need to be trained, they need to be made aware of, and they need to be made fluent on the use of technology for for their usual day working. Then there must be a technology which is secure and on which systems are operating without flaw and with supported with proper processes. I mean, then we have people, process, and technology. Processes are defined, people have to follow, and using the technology, this can be done. But again, this is a rollout of the system all across the government system. And yes, it will boost our economy, it will reduce our working time, and it will facilitate the government.
Ansar, just a couple of more questions that I have left. Unfortunately, we are running short on time, but since it's been such a great example of knowledge sharing with you today,
You.
so I'd request you to answer, take some more time and answer a few questions in the end. So with pandemic, we have seen a lot of businesses digitally transform quickly, and they had to, and one of the areas that they had to work on, especially due to work from home, was cloud computing. And we know that everyone keeps talking about the future of work is cloud and the future of offices is cloud. But this also opens a lot of risks for the businesses, especially confidential data, accounts, everything, since everything is going on cloud now. um, what steps do businesses need to take to ensure that their data is secure?
First of all, they should opt for a cloud service provider who assures them of the security of their data. And in the very start, they must have some liability clauses in their agreement. Because if you hold someone responsible for the security of your data, they will definitely take care of it. If somebody is not doesn't accept the responsibility, then it is kind of a difficult situation. So again, putting in information security controls on the cloud and on the applications which give you access, provide you access to the data and the systems, and then the databases, and ultimately the users. And this is also important that in information security we call human to be the weakest link in the chain, because
Right,
howsoever strong controls you have implemented, howsoever hardware and encryption systems you have implemented, but if a person reveals his password or his PIN code or his personal information, this is the end. This is the end, because human
right,
then makes it compromised.
right. Absolutely. So you've made some very valid points. What about the current cyber crimes laws that we have in place? Do you feel like there are any changes or additions that need to be made that you haven't already seen?
And so actually, when it was in 2016 when we finalized this law. I worked on it since 2008 till 2016. But the technology we have made it in kind of a generalized form. It is
Right.
not specific to any technology. It is not specific to any particular crime. It is generalized,
Okay.
and activities performed by any means through digital systems or electronic systems will be covered in this law. So at the moment, there is no major change required, no more change required. It fulfills all the requirements of Pakistan environment. But maybe in future, with some more technologies or different kind of environments coming in, we may require it. But at the moment, I think it is fine.
Because there's here's some food for thought. Because if somebody commits a fraud and asks somebody, if there's a phishing scam involved, and they asked maybe ransom or some kind of payment to be made during cryptocurrency, and our you know the defendant, I mean the guy appealing, does actually raise the case. That there I've heard so many scenarios where they're like, because we don't recognize this cryptocurrency, there is no remedy for us in the law.
Yes, cryptocurrencies, actually it is we can put it into the law only when the government recognizes the cryptocurrencies as a
Absolutely.
means of transaction.
So what
Before that,
are
we
the
cannot.
electronic frauds that are committed before that?
Actually, it is not. Again, these are the frauds. This is not. This is called ransomware. Somebody encrypts your data and asks you for the ransom money to release your data.
Right.
These are being managed, being perpetrated outside Pakistan. Hackers do work on it, yes, but there are safeguards against it. You have to have a proper operating system from a licensed provider. You please do not use we call it the sorry, I've lost the word. uh, the operating system with unlicensed operating system or unlicensed applications and unlicensed antivirus systems. We have it
Right.
licensed. These ransomware will not affect us, and we have to keep our computers up to date on security controls, so that
Mm-hmm.
keeps the computer safe and our data safe.
Thank you so much, Onsat. It's been a very, very knowledgeable morning. And towards the end, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is the benefit of forums like CXO Global?
Actually, this kind of forum connect people, innovators with the skill holders. And
Right.
I think this is a great initiative, connecting people with skills, connecting people with knowledge, and knowledge sharing. It is always required. Howsoever we are learned, but we still have more to learn about. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was it for today. Thank you very much for watching. For those of you who want to learn more about Syed Aun Abbas Bokhari, we've shared a link in the description. And for those of you who want to find out more about who we are and what we do, log on to www.cxoforum.global. We look forward to your comments and feedback. Up until next time, here's me signing off.